The passing of a global monarch who sat upon the throne for more than 7 decades naturally leaves a profound vacuum in the collective consciousness of the world, prompting millions of people to reflect not just on the grandeur of the crown, but on the quiet, human moments that occurred behind the closed doors of the palace. For 96 years, this extraordinary figure navigated the turbulent waters of modern history, remaining a steadfast anchor through eras of profound social, technological, and cultural transformation. Yet, despite being one of the most photographed and scrutinized individuals in human history, the true essence of her daily existence remained largely shielded from the public eye, wrapped in the strict protocols and impenetrable traditions of the royal court. This paradox of immense public visibility and deep personal mystique has ignited a renewed fascination with the mundane realities of royal life, forcing us to wonder about the simple habits, the private preferences, and the ordinary routines that occupied the hours when the heavy velvet curtains were drawn and the official duties of state were laid aside for the night. We often view historical figures as statues carved from marble, forgetting that beneath the heavy ceremonial robes and glittering tiaras, they shared the same basic human experiences, felt the same passage of time, and took comfort in the same quiet rituals that define our own lives. Exploring these hidden facets of history allows us to bridge the immense gap between the ordinary citizen and the sovereign, transforming a monumental historical icon into someone relatable, tangible, and deeply human. If you find yourself captivated by these forgotten chapters of history and the intimate details that bring the past to life, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and join our growing community of history enthusiasts who seek to uncover the extraordinary stories hidden within the fabric of our shared global heritage. By subscribing, you ensure that you will never miss our deep dives into the lives of the individuals who shaped our world, allowing us to continue bringing you these meticulously researched narratives that connect the past directly to our present reality. As the world transitioned into a new era following the conclusion of this historic reign, a curious artifact emerged from the depths of digital archives and public forums, capturing the imagination of millions who were searching for a tangible connection to the departed sovereign. This artifact was not a hidden state document, a secret diplomatic dispatch, or a piece of forgotten royal jewelry, but rather a simple, handwritten culinary blueprint that offered an unexpected window into a private summer afternoon from over half a century ago. It was a recipe for a traditional Scottish baked good known as drop scones, or Scotch pancakes, which had quietly begun circulating across modern internet platforms, sparking a wave of curiosity among amateur historians and culinary enthusiasts alike. The sudden appearance of this document felt less like a mere coincidence and more like a deliberate whisper from the past, inviting a closer examination of a specific historical moment when the worlds of international diplomacy and domestic hospitality collided in the most charmingly ordinary way imaginable. To understand the true significance of this culinary relic, one must journey back exactly 63 years into the past, embedding themselves in the vibrant and rapidly changing cultural landscape of the year 1959. It was a pivotal period in global history, an era characterized by the expansion of geopolitical borders, exemplified by Hawaii officially becoming the 50th state of the American Union, and the birth of groundbreaking television narratives, such as the premiere of the legendary anthology series known as The Twilight Zone. In the midst of this shifting cultural tide, the young British monarch played host to the leader of the Western world, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, during an intimate and informal gathering at her beloved Scottish retreat, Balmoral Castle. It was during this specific encounter, surrounded by the mist-covered hills and ancient pine forests of the Scottish Highlands, that a unique bond of hospitality was forged, leading to an extraordinary exchange that would be preserved on paper for decades to come. The image of the youthful queen and the decorated American general standing together in 1959 captures a moment of calm reflection before the storm of the coming decade, serving as the historical anchor for a recipe that was destined to transcend its original domestic purpose. The discovery of this old recipe floating through the modern digital wilderness presented an irresistible challenge. functioning as a symbolic invitation from the universe to recreate a piece of living history in a contemporary kitchen. The act of gathering the specific ingredients outlined in the decades-old document became a methodical journey into the past, requiring a careful examination of culinary terms and traditional measurements that have defined British baking for generations. The formula demanded a precise combination of flour, castor sugar, milk, fresh eggs, cream of tartar, butter, and bicarbonate soda, which is more commonly recognized in contemporary households as standard baking soda. The inclusion of castor sugar immediately highlighted the subtle cultural differences that exist between British and American baking traditions, as this superfine substance occupies a unique space in the culinary hierarchy, possessing a grain size that is significantly smaller than traditional granulated sugar, but noticeably larger than powdery confectioner's sugar. Measuring out exactly 4 tablespoons of this superfine sugar and combining it with the fresh eggs marked the official beginning of the historical recreation, a process that required strict adherence to the proportions preserved in the royal archives. The next step involved the introduction of 1½ cups of milk, a quantity explicitly noted in the original document as being equivalent to 2 traditional teacups, representing the first half of the liquid component required to bind the mixture together. After thoroughly blending these wet ingredients into a uniform consistency, the process continued with the gradual addition of 3 full cups of sifted flour, followed immediately by the remaining 1½ cups of milk to maintain the delicate balance of the batter. The chemical leavening agents were then introduced with measured precision, requiring exactly 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar to ensure the characteristic rise and texture of the traditional Scottish pastry. The final touch to this historical concoction was the introduction of 2 tablespoons of butter, which had been gently melted and folded directly into the dense mixture, completing the structural foundation of the royal recipe. As the whisk moved through the bowl, a distinct and comforting aroma began to fill the air, a scent that carried an immediate sense of familiarity, smelling remarkably like traditional pancake batter, but with a richer, more substantive olfactory profile that instantly heightened the senses and stimulated the appetite. The resulting batter was perfectly smooth but notably thick, displaying a heavy, luxurious viscosity that contrasted sharply with the thin, runny consistency typically associated with standard American pancake mixtures. However, upon reviewing the historical document, a fascinating challenge presented itself to the modern cook. As the archival paper contained absolutely no official cooking instructions, temperature guidelines, or timing parameters, leaving the actual execution of the baking process entirely open to modern interpretation and historical detective work. The absolute absence of specific culinary instructions or precise temperature guidelines within the historical document transformed a simple baking experiment into an intricate exercise in historical deduction, requiring a deeper investigation into traditional British cooking methods. To solve this culinary mystery, it became necessary to consult established archival resources, including the culinary repositories of the British Broadcasting Corporation and various specialized public discussion forums where experienced bakers analyzed the historical nuances of regional recipes. These combined investigative efforts quickly revealed that drop scones are traditionally prepared using a heavy, flat griddle pan or a seasoned cast iron skillet, applying a methodology that closely mirrors the preparation of conventional American pancakes, but with a heightened emphasis on maintaining structural compactness. Because the traditional Scottish drop scone is explicitly designed to be small, thick, and uniformly circular, the decision was made to utilize a precise 1/4 cup measuring tool to carefully scoop the dense, viscous batter into a pan that had been lightly greased with a thin layer of melted butter. Entering this phase of the process introduced an immediate sense of tension, as the first attempt at baking any variety of pancake-style batter is notoriously unpredictable, frequently resulting in a misshapen or poorly colored specimen due to the uneven distribution of heat across the surface of a newly warmed pan. This unwritten law of the kitchen proved true once again, as the initial drop scone emerged from the skillet looking decidedly unappealing, serving as a reminder that working with historical formulas requires patience, adaptability, and a willingness to learn through direct trial and error. Fortunately, as the temperature of the buttered pan stabilized and the heat became more uniformly distributed across the metal surface, the second attempt yielded a vastly superior result, displaying a beautifully even, golden brown coloration that hinted at the ultimate success of the endeavor. The sheer volume of the batter produced by the royal proportions was staggering, ultimately yielding approximately 10 substantial pancakes, a process that was not without its fair share of domestic casualties, as several specimens were unfortunately burned to a crisp and had to be discarded due to the fluctuating heat of the domestic stove. A closer reading of the original archival text revealed a highly surprising detail, as the document explicitly states that the ingredient proportions provided are intended to create a yield sufficient to feed 16 hungry guests at a royal gathering, indicating that the true historical drop scones were meant to be significantly smaller and more delicate than the 5-inch diameter versions being produced in this modern experiment. This intriguing discrepancy highlighted the luxurious scale of royal hospitality, where dozens of tiny, perfectly uniform pastries would have been meticulously prepared by a skilled kitchen staff to accompany an elegant afternoon tea service in the grand drawing rooms of a Scottish castle. The entire process of preparing the batter and cooking the multiple batches of drop scones required approximately 35 minutes of focused, continuous labor, a period of time filled with growing anticipation as the physical reality of the historic recipe slowly materialized on the serving platter. Acting upon the specific recommendations of experienced culinary enthusiasts on international forums, the decision was made to serve the fresh, steaming drop scones alongside a traditional pairing of high-quality strawberry jam and rich, unsalted butter, adding a classic touch to the final presentation. Upon slicing into the first completed scone, the structural differences between this traditional Scottish delicacy and the standard American breakfast pancake became immediately apparent, revealing a remarkably thick, dense internal structure that looked incredibly moist and emitted a deeply comforting, buttery aroma that filled the entire room. The first bite delivered a genuine shock to the senses, completely defying expectations with an incredibly rich, sophisticated flavor profile that easily surpassed the taste of standard American box mix pancakes, which can frequently suffer from a dry, bland texture that resembles cardboard more than a freshly baked pastry. In stark contrast, these royal drop scones possessed a delightfully chewy, substantial consistency, closely resembling the heavy, luxurious texture of a traditional pound cake while retaining the comforting warmth and soft crumb of a perfectly executed griddle pastry. The addition of the smooth butter and the sweet, vibrant strawberry jam enhanced the dense crumb of the scone perfectly, creating a harmonious balance of flavors that made it abundantly clear why this specific recipe had been deemed worthy of being shared with an international head of state. This successful culinary recreation provided a tangible living connection to a historical figure who is usually viewed through the distant lens of global statecraft, proving that even a sovereign with immense global responsibilities appreciated the simple, enduring comfort of a flawlessly executed comfort food. While the deep, personal inner thoughts and private daily experiences of the late monarch may always remain shielded from the grand narratives of written history, the survival of this simple recipe ensures that her excellent taste in traditional pastries can be experienced and appreciated by generations of bakers all across the world. The enduring appeal of this simple recipe lies in its ability to humanize an individual who is otherwise defined by rigid public duty, transforming a distant historical icon into a hospitable host who took genuine pleasure in sharing the authentic flavors of her regional heritage with her global contemporaries. This realization adds a layer of depth to our understanding of the past, illustrating that history is not merely a collection of treaties, battles, and official proclamations, but also a tapestry woven from the quiet, shared moments of human connection that occur around the dining table. The image of a young queen carefully writing out these exact proportions to share with an American president offers a glimpse into a bygone era of diplomatic charm, where personal gestures of hospitality held a unique power to strengthen international bonds and foster genuine mutual respect between global leaders. As we reflect on the incredible longevity and historical impact of this remarkable reign, it is these small, unexpected fragments of domestic life that often leave the most lasting impression on our collective memory, reminding us that even the most monumental figures in human history were anchored by the same simple pleasures that bring joy to our own daily lives. By exploring these forgotten corners of the past, we gain a richer, more nuanced appreciation for the individuals who shaped our world, allowing us to see them not as distant myths, but as real people who lived, worked, and shared their favorite traditions with the world around them. To truly comprehend the profound significance of this unique culinary exchange, one must delve into the remarkable biographies of the two main participants and the extraordinary historical context that brought them together during that fateful summer in 1959. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the recipient of this handwritten royal recipe, was a figure of monumental importance in 20th century history. Having served as the supreme Allied commander in Europe during the Second World War before being elected as the 34th President of the United States. His journey from a modest upbringing in Abilene, Kansas, to the highest echelons of military and political power epitomized a transformative era in global leadership, making his informal interactions with the British royal family a fascinating study in transatlantic diplomacy. Queen Elizabeth II, who had ascended to the throne in 1952 following the untimely passing of her father, King George VI, was a young sovereign dedicated to redefining the role of the monarchy in a rapidly modernizing post-war world. Balancing ancient traditions with a forward-looking approach to international relations. The meeting at Balmoral Castle was not merely a formal state visit, but a carefully orchestrated opportunity to strengthen the vital bond between the United Kingdom and the United States, utilizing the relaxed, private setting of the Scottish Highlands to foster a genuine personal friendship between the young queen and the veteran American statesman. This specific encounter took place against the backdrop of an intensifying global landscape, where the warmth of personal hospitality served as an essential tool of soft diplomacy, allowing the leaders to connect on a human level away from the intense scrutiny of the international press and the rigid constraints of official administrative protocols. The story behind the recipe reveals that during his stay at the royal estate, President Eisenhower was treated to an authentic afternoon tea, during which the Queen herself participated in the preparation and serving of the traditional drop scones, a gesture that deeply impressed the American leader and prompted him to express his admiration for the delicious, uniquely textured pastries. Upon returning to Washington, D.C., the president could not shake his fondness for the Scottish delicacies, which prompted the young monarch to personally fulfill a promise she had made during his visit, sitting down at her desk to meticulously type out the exact ingredients and proportions required to recreate the dish in the White House kitchen. The resulting letter, which survived in the presidential archives for decades before its eventual discovery by modern digital researchers, stands as a testament to an era where global diplomacy was conducted with a level of personal charm, attention to detail, and genuine hospitality that seems increasingly rare in our fast-paced contemporary world. In this historic correspondence, dated January 1960, the Queen went so far as to include valuable technical advice for the president's kitchen staff, noting that while the recipe specified a substantial quantity of ingredients intended for 16 people, the proportions could easily be reduced for smaller gatherings, and suggesting that the batter should be beaten thoroughly during preparation to achieve the ideal, light consistency. This fascinating intersection of grand historical narratives and simple domestic traditions serves as a powerful reminder that the individuals who direct the course of global events are, at their core, human beings who find comfort, joy, and connection in the shared experience of breaking bread and celebrating cultural heritage. The enduring fascination with this royal recipe on modern internet platforms highlights a universal human desire to connect with the past in a tangible, experiential way, transforming abstract historical knowledge into a sensory experience that can be shared in any kitchen across the globe. By preparing these traditional drop scones, contemporary enthusiasts are doing more than just baking a delicious breakfast. They are actively participating in a living history, retracing the exact steps taken by a historic monarch and experiencing the precise flavors that once delighted an American president more than 6 decades ago. This unique form of historical preservation bridges the immense gap between different generations and cultures, proving that the most enduring legacies are often not the grand monuments or official documents, but the simple, everyday traditions that pass from one hand to another through the decades. The story of the royal drop scones serves as an inspiring example of how a small, seemingly insignificant artifact can open a gateway to a much larger exploration of human relationships, international history, and the profound power of hospitality to unite people across vast geographic and social divides. As we reflect upon the remarkable lives of Queen Elizabeth II and President Dwight D. Eisenhower, this charming culinary anecdote remains a shining example of their shared humanity, offering a timeless reminder that even amidst the immense responsibilities of global leadership, there is always room for kindness, warmth, and a perfect plate of traditional Scottish pancakes. Ultimately, the survival and modern revival of this decades-old formula allows us to honor the memory of a monumental sovereign not through distant, solemn ceremonies, but through an active, joyful celebration of her personal heritage, ensuring that a small piece of her private world continues to bring people together around the dining table for many years to come.